Hello there and welcome back to Memory Gamma. Today we are going to look at a ship idea that has been suggested on one of the videos. Thank you very much. For one of the name ships this time, for the U.S.S Thunderchild. So an Akira class, so Federation ship. Let's bring it up. Here it is. The Thunderchild, for those literary buffs, will know that the Thunderchild is the name of one of the warships in H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. It took out 3 Martian tripods during the invasion, the third one by crashing into it. So the ability is a defensive ability. If you take no damage from an attack, you get to roll 1 dice counter-attack against them. It does seem that sort of tenacious ability that you might expect from something that takes down Martian tripods. So, the Akira has several ways to build it. The torpedo build is quite a popular one, but that tends to work better with other versions of the Akira class, specifically the Akira and the Spectre. However, the Thunderchild works a bit differently. Since it's a defensive ability, and it's an older ship, so it doesn't have a tech slot as standard, it's not quite got the base build for it. It still works, and you can still throw all the Akira special stuff on here to make it into a torpedo boat. But if you're doing that, there are better ships to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to use it alternatively as a heavy fighter, a dogfighter. So close, hard-hitting, maneuverable, that sort of thing. So it's going to be moving fast, it's going to be moving hard, it's going to be hitting hard, and it's going to be a lot more offensive rather than long-range support. Now, in that vein, we're going to do a couple of things to start with. We're going to give it a Dominion War retrofit. Gives it a bonus shield and a bonus slot. And because we don't need so many weapon slots, we are going to trade one of them out with a systems upgrade for another tech slot and a bonus shield. This just gives it 2 extra shields to make it a 5 total, and it gives it a couple of extra slots. Now we've got flexibility. Now we've got double weapon, tech, crew, and a universal. So let's go for the weapons first, since it's an Akira class. Because we're going to go for primary attacking, I'm thinking we can go type 10, which would give us a bonus dice and 2 points of conversion. Failing that, we could go for a dorsal phaser array. Not the Alliance set dice one, we could go for that. So 4 dice at range 1 to 2, 360. Just means that you can fire regardless of where you are. And that's nice. That could work, but obviously that's not a prime weapon shot. That is then, at which point then, if you've got that, you don't really mind about maneuverability, because it doesn't matter where you go, you can usually get a shot off. So I like doing the type 10, also because the type 10 gives us some passive quality, 2 blank rerolls, which means that while we're firing our 5 dice primary, we're going to get a little bit more likely to do some damage. Now, we're going to need something to make us more maneuverable. Now that, for the Federation, is crew. There are several ways we could go. We can look at either increasing speed, we can look at giving additional moves, we can look at reducing the Orc's power requirements. Or actually we could do both, or all 3 even. So we want to remove some way to remove the Orc's power token. We could do Scotty. You can disable him to prevent an Orc's power token from being placed beside your ship, which is nice. And then he gives you an action to discard and do some hull repair. Could be nice. I mean, he's 5 points for a crew upgrade that basically stops you from taking the Orc's power token. Now, he is a disable, so you would have to then re-enable him somehow. But we have ways of doing that. If anyone's got ways of doing that, the Federation has. So, he's a possibility. Nog's possible, but Nog is you do a red maneuver, you disable Nog, and you still have to skip your perform action step, but then you get to remove the Orc's power token. That's not really what we want. We want to be able to do the red maneuver and immediately act. So Wesley allows you to do an action bar action even if you have Orc's power tokens for a disable. So that might work, but we'd have to find some way of re-enabling him passively. So maybe not. This Scotty is always nice. Disable him to remove an Orc's power token from beside your ship. But because it says at any time, that means start of a phase. So you'd have to do it at the start of the activation phase, start the combat phase, start the end phase, start the planning phase. Which would mean that you'd do your red maneuver, you'd pick the Orc's power token up in the check power strain step, and you couldn't remove that until the start of the combat phase, so you still wouldn't get an action. So, not the best. But he does add a slot, and that slot might be really useful. We might keep Scotty as sort of like a second choice backup. Chekhov, nope, he just gives you repairing or re-enabling shields. Engineering officer, perform an action after you while you have an Orc's power token. Possible, because then we just don't have to worry about having it. But then we still have to clear it before we can do it again. Chekhov removes Orc's power on a white maneuver. Doesn't help us until the following turn. Sulu, if you do a red maneuver, disable him rather than placing the Orc's power token. That sounds like a good idea. You do your red maneuver, disable him rather than the Orc's power token. Now again, as I said, you have to be able to re-enable. We have ways of re-enabling with the Federation. So if we go to our other crew slot, I know it's a crew weapon tech, but if we use it as a crew, we've got the most potential. And we can always put someone in here who gives us a bonus slot. That's not so much of a worry. So if we want to do things about movement, I mean, an absolute brilliant one for moving is Helmsman. He's a disable for increasing or decreasing the speed of your maneuver. It's really nice because you can increase your green maneuvers. It keeps the colour when you do your maneuver. So you reveal a 1 bank, it's a green. You can upgrade it to a 2 bank and it keeps green. So it's a way of doing faster green maneuvers. Or with this, you could reveal a 2 hard turn and it would increase it to a 3 or decrease it to a 1. And either way, you've either then got a 3 hard turn that isn't red, thanks to the Helmsman, or you've managed to get a 1 hard turn, which isn't even on your dial. You could go to a 5 straight, or you could turn your 3 come about into a 4 or a 2. So it gives you massive amount of flexibility, and you only decide that at the moment you would do the maneuver. So you can wait until that last yawing instant before you move to see where you might want to go, based upon where other people who are lower than you have moved. Pardon me. So that's always a good shout. Now, they're both disables. So we look at something that re-enables. Let's look at captain, who do things with crew. And let's go from the bottom. Now, there's several that we could use. People that allow you to bonus crew slots. So Tarvik just gives us a bonus crew slot, which we could use to put someone like Julian Bashir in. But if we're going to add a crew slot, we want to do something more than just add a crew slot. Other people who add crew or do stuff with crew. Archer disables. He adds a crew slot, and that's just disabling extra crew. Chakotay adds a crew slot, gives us something with scans. Ransom. Tim Waters is a good shout. We put Tim Waters on just for now. He adds a crew slot, which is something that is good. He gives us a talent slot, which for skill 4 isn't bad. And his action is to re-enable all disabled crew upgrades. That's nice. Because now we've got Sulu and the Helmsman. We could use them both, and then you could use your action to re-enable both of them. However, now we're looking at, we need some quality somehow. And if we want quality, we want some sort of free action somewhere that doesn't take up our action to do. Ideally, we wanted someone who disables themselves to do something, because then Tim would just re-enable them. At which point, we've got... there's Tal Celeste, the 7 of 9. There's a handful of crew upgrades that you can disable to give a free action or placing a token. And actually, if we were to do 7 of 9, disable her for a free battle stations action. We could do that. That gives us a free battle stations. It's not a bad shout. But if we're going to do that, hold on for a second, we can put this Riker on board. This is Enterprise E Riker, the modern version. He adds a crew slot, so he replaces himself. He's a free action. You disable him to do a Captain, Elite Talent, or crew action as a free action. So now we can put 7 of 9 on. And you go, start of activation phase, disable 7 of 9 for a free battle stations. You reveal your maneuver, say it's a 3 come about. Increase it to a 4 with Helmsman. Disable Sulu rather than placing the York's power token. So you've got 3 disabled crew now. Then you can disable Riker for a free action to use Tim Waters' action to re-enable all 4 crew upgrades. And you've still got your ship main action to use, because they're all free actions so far. That is actually really nice. I mean, there's lots of ways it could be better. It could be more streamlined. But this gives lots of potential. Because you don't have to use every single crew upgrade every single turn. I mean, if you don't need to increase speed or decrease speed, you don't have to use Helmsman. If you're not doing a red maneuver, you're not using Sulu. But this gives us a lot of potential, which is what I like, because it means that you can use it in a number of ways. It means that you can do a lot of things with it. And it means that the enemy is going to be... It's quite hard for the enemy to go, well, I think you're going to go here. So if they think, well, you're going to need to do like a hard turn, you've then got 3 options of how you do that. You could do a 1, 2, or a 3 because of the helmsman. If you need to be going straight, you've got 5 ranges rather than 4. You know, you can increase or decrease your come about. So it's really hard for them. I'm sorry. It's really, really hard for them to be able to guess where you're going to be. In some cases, it's going to be easy because they know only one particular move is going to get you where you want to go. But again, it just makes you more unpredictable, which is what you like, because it means if the enemy doesn't know, then they have to try and think ahead and plan for it. It's harder to plan if you give them more options. So at this point, we've got his elite talent slot, we've got a tech upgrade, and we've got an admiral. Now, if you're doing a one-on-one ship and it's just a duel, or even a 2-on-2 and there's just a points limit, there's no reason to not bring an admiral. For tech, we do want to try and do something with that defensive ability. So we go... so you've got multi-adaptive shielding, bonus defense dice, bonus shield, ignoring scans and minefields. It's probably one of the best all-round defensive techs for the Federation. Multi-phasic could be a nice idea. It stops the enemy affecting your crew and captain. Nice. Could be nice. I mean, you are reliant on a crew combo, so you might want to do that. You could do that. But I think for generic use, the multi-adaptives is probably the best. It means you're rolling 3 defense dice. You've got 6 shields. The enemy can't use scan tokens to remove your defense dice. And of course, if anyone throws a minefield down, you still get your 3 defense dice against it. That's nice. We like that. It's multi-adaptive shielding is one of those upgrades where if you've got a tech slot and 5 points, you put it on a Federation ship unless you've got a very specific plan otherwise, because there is not any build in the Federation that is not improved by multi-adaptive shields. So, let's have a look at an admiral. Now, there are some admirals we could use to give us more slots. Admiral Christopher Pike from the Kelvinverse, or Admiral Kirk, both of which add crew slots, which just allow us to do more things. However, that just means we're throwing more and more things on this ship. Now, that may not be a bad thing. But there is a couple of other admirals that we could use that might give us a bit of an edge, especially on a one-on-one. I mean, a good one is, for example, Leighton. You target a ship, place 2 time tokens on Leighton, and the target ship attacks last. So if you're only skill 6, doesn't matter that you're low captain skill, because if they're in range 1 to 2, they fire last. You're always going to get the first shot. So that's always nice, and it sort of offsets the fact that you've got a relatively low captain skill. It also gives us a second talent slot, which we can do stuff with. Only thing is, Leighton, now theoretically, with Riker triggering, you could do Leighton every single turn. Apart from the fact that he gets 2 time tokens. And this is somewhere where Esri doesn't help, because Esri would normally remove a time token, but she only works on captains and crew, not admirals. So there is one way that we could get the time token off of Leighton. If I remove that just for a second, we can go T. And then I just need to put the Type 10 second card back on. I have to do that because on Utopia, it doesn't require an upgrade slot T normally. However, on Utopia, because of the way it works, you have to put it into an actual slot. It just gives you the slot back when you've done it. So that means you would do 7 of 9's free battle stations action before you move. You would get a scan evade instead and remove a time token from a card equipped to your ship, which, since it just says a card, that includes admirals. So that allows you to do 7 helmsmen, Sulu, Riker, Waters and Leighton every single turn. And you've still got a pair of elite talents. Now, of course, you are at that point there spending that battle stations token instead to get a scan evade, which obviously the evade helps you live longer and the scan will make your attack hurt a bit more. But you need some conversions. So if we're going to keep to the Federation, I mean, we've gone for a crew heavy build. I like Red Squad. When you've got lots of crew, Red Squad's always brilliant, because you get a number of tokens, evade, scan or battle stations, equal to the Federation crew upgrades on your ship to a max of 4. We have 4. And during the activation phase, you do your move. Before you act, you get to take one of those tokens off and put it next to your ship. So you can load it up with battle stations, load it up with evades, do a mix of everything. But it means that you could have battle stations from Red Squad, scan evade from 7's battle station into T, to give you battle stations, scan and evade for 4 turns if you do 4 battle stations on Red Squad. Type 10 gives you some blank rerolls, banked battle station conversions if they've got no shields. So this looks nice. This looks nice. It means you can use Leighton every turn, so one ship is always firing last. That's going to get really, really annoying for the enemy, but it could work. Now, what is his talent? At this point, there's any number of things you can do. This is the talent slot is probably the most eclectic, the most viable slot for doing something interesting or one shot or fun, because almost all talents are action discards or have a very, very specific time when they can activate. They can be used for your sort of one-trick ponies. They can be for your psych, your one-shot special ability. Some of the modern ones have got a more passive bonus. Some of them give something every time, but they have very specific times when they can trigger. Coordinated Assault is something that happens every time it triggers. However, it has to be a friendly ship at range 1, and you have to spend one of your tokens and give it to them. So, again, it's possible. If we're doing this as a one-ship fleet, then obviously there's not going to be a friendly ship. But it's never a bad idea. Coordinated Assault. If you're doing a fleet build, especially a synergistic fleet build, which the Federation like doing, it means you can have your one sort of like token massive ship in the middle, and then it can hand out tokens to its friends whenever you attack, after you attack or defend. So you attack, oh, I've got a battle station I didn't spend, we'll give it to one of my mates so they can use it. I defended, oh, I'm not getting shot again, I've got an evade token I didn't use, pass it on. But it's every time you attack or defend. So if you've got loads of tokens and you're getting shot loads, you can simply hand your tokens that you're not using off to your friends. Intercept stops someone from getting hurt. Persistence Persistence is a nice one. When attacking with a prime weapon, if you... Now, unfortunately, this does require you to max out on the dice roll. Because it requires you to roll a hit or crit with every dice. But then it allows you to discard the card and add 2 more dice. Or 4 against Borg. Now, that's not a bad shout. I mean, it's 5 points and it requires you to fundamentally, max out your dice roll. You're rolling 4 or 5 dice, maybe even 6 at range 1. The more dice you roll, the less likely it is to happen. So persistence, I quite like putting on really, really small ships. I've used persistence on an airy class. It only has 1 dice, which means you've got a 50-50 chance of it triggering to give you 2 additional dice, or 4 against Borg. So if you're throwing 6 dice, however, you're going to have 6 chances for it not to trigger, because each dice has got a 50-50 chance of being a hit crit or a blank battle station, and you need to basically... It's, 50-50, so you need to basically be able to call heads 6 times in a row and it land on heads. It's doable. I'm not saying it isn't. I have seen it happen once with 6 dice. But it's better off on smaller attack dice number because you just have more chance of it triggering. Can't do Vatosh Takur, but a problem is it's really nice. You discard it and upgrades or shields to get bonus attack dice. But it's Vulcan ship, Vulcan captain. Make it so. It's a disable. Sorry, it's a discard to prevent a disable. Which, I mean, in a pinch, it can be nice, but it's 5 points for a discard to prevent a disable. Not amazing. Fire at will would matter if we have a weapon card. Picard Maneuver's not a bad shout. It is an action, but it allows you to do your 3, which could even be a green 2, upgraded to a 3, because you then perform a 3 up, and then blip forward another 5. At which point you get an Orcs power token, but everyone gets -4 dice against you, which means you're very likely to survive that round. Now, of course, that -4 dice is capped at the rule of 3, but it means that if they're running bonus dice, then obviously it's a total value. So if they've got +2, you've got -4 running, the total is -2. And since -2 is not over the rule of 3, they suck up a -2 dice. So they'll have to work quite hard to actually get some serious dice against you after the Picard maneuver. And that's not a bad shout. I also like Diplomacy, which is the, I don't particularly want to die this round, and you pick an enemy ship, both you and them discard all tokens apart from Orcs power tokens, and neither one of your ships can attack or be attacked. Now, in a one-on-one, that's simply attack cancellation. It's an action attack cancellation. But in a big fleet battle, it literally takes out... You can put that onto a little ship, and it takes out a massive ship out of the fight. Full Alert... It's nice, it gives you 1 of each token, but you cannot do any free actions that round. So it doesn't work with our sort of crew build. Sacrifice. Sacrifice could work. Sacrifice could work. It's very Tim Waters. It's very sort of like good on him, just thematically. But also, before you roll your dice for attacking or defending, you can discard Sacrifice, disable your captain, and you get to pick 2 results. And they can't be re-rolled, which means they can't be forced to be re-rolled. So if you go, I'm attacking, well, obviously you're going to pick 2 crits. You've got instantly 2 crits on the attack, or 2 evades on the defense dice roll. And if the enemy says, oh, make them re-roll dice, no, it can't be re-rolled. They can convert down if they've got something that converts down. So, for example, if you're firing at the U.S.S Defiant, which says all of the enemy crits become hits, then the 2 crits you set would get down converted to hits, but they wouldn't be able to say, oh, the enemy must re-roll all their attack dice. Well, you can't re-roll those 2 dice, so they are fixed. And yes, it disables your captain. But the following round, you do your maneuver, you do 7 helmsman, Sulu, whatever you want. Then you use your normal action to re-enable Tim Waters, and then you simply disable Riker to do Waters' action as a free action and re-enable everything. Basically, it means the turn afterwards you can't Leighton, is all it means. But that works. Again, it's not the best. There are things you could do better than this. But, so, that's the thing fully filled out. Now, this is a very expensive ship. It's 73 points. I'm not building to a points limit here. This is here is a named ship. What can we do with this named ship that's interesting? I think this is interesting. It gives you a chance to trigger the named ability with the multi-adaptive shield and the fact you've got 6 shields. You also get bonus evade tokens from TL Grey and possibly a Red Squad to make yourself more survivable. Sacrifice can make you guarantee to evade something if you want to use it defensively, or you can use it offensively to guarantee getting some damage through. You've got a lot of maneuver options between Sulu and the Helmsman. You've got the ability to stop the enemy from firing before you with Leighton, and Tim Waters keeps the whole thing ticking over. So, thank you very much for the suggestion. If you do have any suggestions about, you know, the ship, about what you'd like to see differently, if you think Tim Waters is an idiot or an underused captain, or you think this build is particularly brilliant or terrible, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you next time. As I said, if you do have any more suggestions for other ships or other factions, other things to do, drop them in. I'll read them and comment back. And otherwise, I'll see you next time.